Good evening, and welcome to the December issue of Black Nouveau. I'm James Causey, and I'm in for Earl Arms. This month, we will reflect on the lives and service of two Milwaukeeans we lost. Bishop Sedgwick Daniels, founder of Holy Redeemer Church of God in Christ, and Ronnie Grace, LGBTQ activist and HIV health counselor at Diverse and Resilient. We also discovered the art and artistry of Rosy Petri. But we begin with a short film by Justin Goodrum, The Stigma of the Durag.
My name is Justin Goodrum, and I'm a filmmaker, entrepreneur, and cinema verte cinematographer. As long as I can remember, I've either worn a durag or I've had peers who wore one. Whether it be worn to keep a hairstyle, like waves intact at night, or a fashion accessory worn during the day. But not once have I thought that most of the world truly doesn't understand.
We're here in downtown Milwaukee to find out what a durag actually is. Stay tuned.
I think it's been associated in the media, like movies, as sort of like a gangster thing.
What is a durag?
Apologize, I don't understand what a durag is.
Okay, what would you think it is if you had to guess?
Something for an auto car?
No.
I have no idea.
What do you think it is?
How do you spell it?
D-U-R-A-G.
Durag. I don't know.
I think it's something you put on your head.
Yeah, exactly.
It is really?
Yeah.
Oh, to cover your do.
A head garment,
Okay, what is it for?
waves.
Okay, there you go. Most people we ask today really don't know what it's for.
Yeah, I mean, I got curly hair.
How does it affect the hair?
Well, it lays it down.
Oh, okay.
Durag's a handkerchief they put on your head.
Okay. What is it for?
Protect you from sweat? I don't know.
It's time and place for everything. You know what I'm saying? And something like that shouldn't be worn out in public places because you will be judged.
Do you think it's a stigma behind durags or durag wearing?
Almost definitely.
It doesn't matter what's on your head, it matters what's in your heart.
Yeah.
That's it. That's where we got to come from.
Some kind of headwear. I mean, I've never worn one. As far for the stigma, I don't have a stigma personally, but that's just me. Do other people have a stigma? Maybe.
What is a durag?
A durag is a stamp of Black culture. It's the simplest way I could put it. It's a stamp of Black culture.
But not once have I thought that most of the world truly doesn't understand why, and oftentimes associate wearing a durag with thugs, criminals, and gangs in the minority groups.
An Edmonton Catholic school under fire after a Black child was allegedly told to remove his durag due to gang affiliation.
You don't see an 11-year-old boy and ask him, are you affiliated with the gang because of her hair garment? That's not a question that you ask.
There are children that age that are part of gangs.
You hear the principal repeating the assumption that durags represent gang activity. Amel has not been to school since.
Black culture to another level. Look at that. Look at that. You're waiting for where are your waves? Let me see. Check them. Show your waves. Oh! Wave check. Look at this. This is crazy.
I feel kind of fly standing next to you. Baby girl, how do I look in my durag? Would you tell me the truth? Stay with me and love me.
This became a reality for me my freshman year in college. With high enrollment that year at the predominantly white college I went to, I was roomed in the lounge with 4 others. And that night I would put on my durag, just like I have as long as I can remember. Not long after living together, one of my roommates asked another roommate if I was in a gang because of it. Although gang members do go to college, the only action of myself was wearing a durag to be considered a person in that group. But what happens if a potential employer sees you wearing one, or an officer stops you with one on? Will they understand? Or will things take a turn for the worse because of his association.
We are now joined by film's creator, Justin Goodrum. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, what surprised you about the film?
I guess what surprised me is some of the responses I got when I interviewed people. You know, I always thought that this is what they thought, but to actually hear people say it or not know what it was completely was kind of surprising, but somewhat guessed it though.
So, at school, when you were at UW Whitewater, you wore your do-rag. Yeah. What was the response to you wearing your do-rag on campus?
Well, so oddly enough, I didn't wear it on campus. I happened to wear it in wear it to sleep, so for my hair. Okay. And I had roommates, white roommates, and he asked one of my friends, like, oh, is Justin in the gang because I wore a do-rag? And it wasn't malicious or anything like that. He just really thought I was in a gang because of it. And, you know, years later, when I'm putting some of my experiences and things into my work, that's one of the subject matters I pulled from.
So what other stereotypes are you trying to dismiss about the do-rag?
That people that wear it are in gangs. Like, either they have the low haircut where they're trying to get waves or braids or dreadlocks. So just that it's a simple, I guess, head garment to help keep the hair kept. Okay. And if you happen to see somebody that wears it out, don't stereotype them.
So this is an interesting question. A lot of women have been criticized for wearing bonnets outside the home. Mm-hmm. How is that different than wearing a do-rag outside?
I don't know if it is a difference. I think maybe somebody should fund another project on bonnets or what people think about that and the stereotypes behind it. But I think it all just stems from something somebody puts over their head to either cover or keep a hairstyle, which shouldn't have a negative connotation behind it.
So young filmmaker, what else are you working on?
So current project I'm working on is my first feature narrative film or fictional called Christopher, and it tackles the stigma in the Black community around mental health and mental illness.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
You know, when I was a kid, I was called different names, and I didn't understand because where they came from. I knew I felt different than a lot of other kids, and so I went into the dictionary and then into the encyclopedia, and there was this one line that said about homosexuality, saying that homosexuality is a sickness, it's an illness. And so I took that with me, that there was something wrong with me.
But things have changed. Now 2 cameras are fixed on him as he slowly spells out his name.
My first name is Ronnie, R-O-N-N-I-E. Last name is Grace, G-R-A-C-E.
To make sure we identify him correctly.
And now, you know, I can bring my whole self into a situation, bring my whole self into any doors that I walk through. Whereas there was a time where I wanted to hide my identity because of all the stigma that exists in the world.
This is one of Ronnie Grace's last interviews, taped around Pride Month last summer. Ronnie died in November from stage 4 cancer. During his lifetime, he fought for equality just as fiercely as he fought the HIV virus. He spoke with Black Nouveau in 2014 to talk candidly about his journey with HIV.
I tested positive, it's over 28 years now. September 17, 1987 was the exact date. I got tested in a time when technology was new around HIV testing. So initially, I thought I had gotten what they called a false positive. But unfortunately, it was not a false positive. But I went into denial about my HIV status for several years until I started manifesting some health issues.
Ronnie Grace was living in Los Angeles when he tested positive for HIV. Openly gay, he worked in the entertainment industry. Like many of his peers, he went into denial.
I was just scared, and that was the way that I dealt with it. It was just the fear of having a disease that people were saying at the time that we would live maybe 6 months with. And so I didn't know how to discuss it. I didn't have any information around HIV at the time. So I just figured if I just didn't talk about it, I figured that it might go away, or that I was one of those people who had gotten a false positive. And I just started using condoms, to protect myself and to protect my partners.
Ronnie moved to Atlanta and eventually fell ill. Then his family stepped in.
I actually had tried to commit suicide after finding out about my HIV diagnosis and becoming clearer about what it meant to have HIV. And so my mother sent my brothers to Atlanta, where I was living at the time, and she said, I want y'all to go down there, find my baby, and don't come back to Milwaukee without him. And so they brought me back here. I got into care immediately, and that's when I found out about that not only that I was living with HIV, but I was given an AIDS diagnosis. And I was told at the time, I wasn't doing really well. I was down to maybe like 120 pounds. What turned it around was the unconditional love, support of my family. My mother in particular was just an amazing ally and support system, and my siblings, and I got into care.
Ronnie works at Diverse and Resilient with a team of professionals that offer testing, counseling, and support for transgender, gay, and bisexual men with HIV. African Americans accounted for over 46% of new diagnoses in 2011, and 72% of those were transmitted by men having sex with men.
Stigma is still off the chain. As a matter of fact, just last week, I was told that someone that I normally test found out that I was HIV positive and did not want to be tested by me anymore.
Ronnie is careful about his diet and follows a strict regimen.
For those of us who have managed to figure out ways to stay here, to stay healthy and take our meds and do the things to keep us here, it's like sometimes many of us feel like we're forgotten, because so many of the efforts and so much of the outreach is to younger demographics. And so we still deal with issues around losing really close friends and family members. When I first developed the virus, it was like, why me? And now it's like, why not me? And then sometimes it's like, I just have so many feelings around still being here and watching the impact that the virus has had on, the African American communities.
And Ronnie served Milwaukee's African American LGBTQ community at Diverse and Resilient for almost 2 decades.
For artist Rosy Petri, home is where her art is.
Oh, I messed it up. Sometimes I still mess up. Still hard. I am 36 years old. I have moved 37 times in my life. So home as a concept was nebulous. And I thought that anything that I made with my own 2 hands was the thing that was home. And in a real sense of the word, like, home should be paradise.
It's in the comfort of this Harambe home that doubles as her studio that she's been able to build a creative oasis with a fitting name.
So Paradise Home is what it became. I've always made art. I love putting things together in surprising ways. I didn't really realize art was a job, so I did it as a hobby. Mostly at home. My artists are Black people. It just is. I think when I started, I think that was kind of my objective, was to just like create iconography of like Black people just living, being joyful, making history, breaking records, whatever that thing is. It's just like, I think that it's sacred. to show Black people thriving and living. So that's who it's for. Basically everything that I was making, from the first one to bell hooks to everything at the Pfister, was made on a second-hand machine. And this was me wanting to be able to work bigger. So primarily I work in fabric. I do use printmaking, I use digital media. I also have started painting recently. I love ink. I love materials. I will use whatever I can get my hands on. All right, I'm gonna do my little manual, okay? I made my first quilt in high school. I had seen my grandmother quilt, my mom's mom. She was from here. And then my grandmother from Mississippi had these old Southern quilts, like those big heavy patchworks with the red ties. And something about using fabric feels real human. You know, it's something that we all have access to, that we touch every day. It was really accessible, I think. So it wasn't intimidating, and I just jumped right in. And that kind of love for fabric grew when I moved to Detroit and I was working in the dress shop. I had never seen African fabric. And I worked there for a year, and I just like learned so much about it, and it hit all the boxes, like color, rhythm, pattern. It's so exciting. My art is loud. It's loud like a Nigerian auntie. You know what I mean? Like it's something that stops people in their tracks, and I don't know that that means I'm like the best artist or whatever, but I think it surprises people and it delights them with how noisy it is.
And that artistic voice is making noise around the city. In 2019, she became the first Black woman to be named the Pfister's Artist in Residence. And the following year, in 2020, she was named a Mildred Harpo Artist of the Year by the city of Milwaukee. But her newfound notoriety, paired with the 2020 pandemic and racial uprisings, led her to a career turning point.
It just tore me up. It tore me up. It tore me up on so many levels, and I think it changed what the message was. I had taken on a lot of commissions because I needed to pay for my sewing machine, but I just felt like I was losing the direction of my voice. And I felt obligated to say yes to things that I didn't think I was the best choice for. So after a lot of pushing and a lot of focusing in, you know, kind of on the oral history project, I was like, I think I know what I want to do, and I don't know that what I want to do is going to be for everybody, but I want to say yes enthusiastically to the things that I want to do. This is the project I was telling you all about. These are the illustrations. These are black and white. I work with a photographer, and then I take them and digitally draw them, and then I make a big print and use that as a pattern. So I shifted from doing portraiture of celebrities and icons to a project specifically about Black women and their work during the uprisings, like in terms of the community organizing and the social work that they were doing on their own.
And that shift includes reminding herself that as a Black creative, your autonomy can sometimes mean everything.
Now, I can work as big as I have patience for. It's not a limitation by like the size of my table. Now it's how long do you want to work on one piece? I want to do the best work I can by making work that feels real and important to me. So that's kind of been the shift.
Leaving herself enough room to dream big in her paradise home.
After 3 decades serving as head of one of Milwaukee's prominent Black churches and a guiding light for the city's faith community, Bishop Sedgwick Daniels died last month at 64. He founded Holy Redeemer in 1986 on North 12th Street and West Atkinson Avenue. The congregation quickly outgrew its facility. Under his leadership, the church turned an abandoned industrial site at North 35th Street and West Hampton Avenue into a multi-million-dollar church complex. The complex remains an economic and social anchor on the city's north side. We remember him from the 5th annual MLK concert with the combined choirs of Holy Redeemer and the Bel Canto Chorus. The bishop reads, Letter from a Birmingham jail.
My dear fellow clergymen, while confined here in Birmingham City Jail, I came across your recent statement calling my present activity unwise and untimely. I am in Birmingham because injustice is here. Just as the prophets of the 8th century BC left their villages and carried their "Thus saith the Lord" far beyond the boundaries of their hometowns, and just as Apostle Paul left his village of Tarsus and carried the gospel of Jesus Christ to the far corners of the Greco-Roman world, so am I compelled to carry the gospel of freedom beyond my own hometown. I cannot sit idly by in Atlanta and not be concerned about what happens in Birmingham. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. We have waited for more than 340 years for our constitutional and God-given rights. The nations of Asia and Africa are moving with jet-like speed toward gaining political independence. But we still creep at horse and buggy pace towards gaining a cup of coffee at a lunch counter. Perhaps it is easy for those who have never felt the stinging darts of segregation say, wait. But when you've seen vicious mobs lynch your mothers and fathers at their own will and drown your sisters and brothers at a whim, when you have seen hate-filled policemen curse, kick, and even kill your black brothers and sisters, when you have seen the vast majority of your 20 million Negro brothers smothering in an airtight cage of poverty in the midst of an affluent society, then you will understand why we find it difficult to wait. There comes a time when the cup of endurance runs over and men are no longer willing to plunge into the abyss of despair. We will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the hateful words and actions of the bad people, but for the appalling silence of the good people. Human progress never rolls in on wheels of inevitability. It comes through the tireless efforts of men willing to be co-workers with God. And without this hard work, time itself becomes an ally of the forces of social stagnation. We must use time creatively in the knowledge that the time is always ripe to do good. Now is the time to make real the promise of democracy and transform our pending national elegy into a creative psalm of brotherhood. Now is the time to lift our national policy from the quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of human dignity.
That is our program for this month. Please join us online at milwaukeepbs.org. And however you celebrate this holiday season, we wish you joy, peace, and love. And happy 2024.